Time to talk about a story I did not think I was going to talk about. Whether it was moving, computer issues, or just deciding whether or not if I wanted to talk about this or not. Um, I think now I feel confident enough to talk about this subject. Um, and I had went and asked a few friends prior, should I do this? And they are 100% on board. So, we're going to talk about this because not only is this, I guess, like a good lesson for people who may be going through the same thing or had gone through the same thing, um, but also this could finally close the book on that chapter entirely. So, without further ado, let's jump into this. Um, You may have noticed throughout my time making videos or streaming, I've always talked about, or sometimes I'll talk about my dad, whether it's something he's doing or maybe like something that we used to do when I was younger. I would mention a lot of people from my family as well, but I never mentioned about one person. And we're going to talk about that person today. And that person is indeed my mother. It was very rough, to say the least. And for 17 years, it was always something new. And not in a good way. There was manipulating, brainwashing, lying, and in the end, it got abusive. And I want to just understand that now I don't have to worry about that anymore, and I haven't had to worry about it for the past 10 years. It's just that 10-year mark has reached since the last time I've ever seen her. So I always had a feeling I was going to talk about her on here, but I just never thought it would be like this, or if I was just gonna maybe mention it in a stream and just forget about it. But no, we're talking about it right now. So, first and foremost, I have not seen her. I have not really spoken to her in about 10 years. And the reason behind it, like I said, there was a lot of brainwashing, abuse, lying, just a bunch of different things. And pretty much there were a lot of obstacles in the way. And it made it to where I felt like there was going to be no road to recovery. And when you're told this stuff for years, that your dad is abusive and the whole family just is going to watch you fail, you're going to end up on the streets just because she didn't get her way with something. When you're a little kid, it's hard to think anything else but. And I know for a fact that if I had known the truth beforehand, this would have been solved a lot better. But like I said, it never came through. So, what were some of the things that were lied about and what were said throughout the 17 years of nonsense? Well, first and foremost, Kitty, no, you're chilling in here with me. First and foremost, again, about my dad, I'm not saying he's perfect, but he's definitely putting an effort. And she would always tell me he would never put in an effort. There were times where I would go to, or he would go to events or shows, especially things that I was interested in, and he did try to bring me with him. But she would say things like, oh, he never he never invited you, he never thought of you, he was just worried about getting drunk with his friends. But of course, I find out years later that he did put in an effort, and considering there were more people agreeing with him, I kind of went on his side and say that he did try. It was just the person that was supposed to send the message either didn't or said it in a way that did not make enough sense, or didn't make sense to where she had to lie about what he was trying to do. Then came the stuff with fighting with other family members. So I had lived in Middletown, Delaware for a majority of my life. Well, a majority of my childhood, because I've been in Delco for 10 years. So we're starting to get past that area. But I lived in Delaware for most of my childhood, and most of the time she wasn't there. My mom was not there. Where my grandparents, who unfortunately are no longer with us, they passed away in 2018 and 2020. They were the ones that watched me while my mom was doing whatever. Um, and he didn't know that. My dad didn't know that for a very long time. He knew I visited, or we were all kept saying we were visiting a lot, but I was never said that I was living there. And we held on to that for many years because I was always told, he's gonna ruin your life if you don't go with what we're saying here. And also, I'm trying to go through everything because I'm trying to take it like step by step by step. So there was a lying to him about a lot of things, and then it came lying about family members that she had burned bridges with. So basically, like the same grandparents. I have another set of grandparents from her side of the family. So my one grandmother and my one grandfather, they got divorced. So the two that passed away was my grandmother and my step grandfather. Technically, he was a step grandfather, but I've known him my whole life, so never said that around him. And the other two grandparents, my mom's dad and my step grandmother, they're still alive, which is nice. And they've known my side of the story for quite a while because I came clean, like, because that's the best part. You come clean, especially after years of all the trauma that has happened, that you start to remember what happened so you can be more accurate. And they were very, very supportive. But back to the situation with them, because she did burn bridges with them too. There were times where she moved in with them, and they had offered her things like therapy, because she wasn't doing okay mentally. I don't know if it was because of everything that was going on, or there's a kid involved, and all this other kind of things that were going on. So they had offered her going to therapy, and they were going to cover it, and so that way she can get back on her feet properly. She went for, I think, 2 sessions, and then afterwards, that was it. Like, she had a freak out and left. And also, the other grandparents, well, again, they burned bridges. Like, I still lived at the house for many years, but the bridges were burned so bad that I was allowed to live there, but she wasn't. Some people might think that's petty, but if you were there and you saw what happens, you understand that it made sense to go that direction, even if you don't, even if someone from another point of view doesn't see it that way. And it's different. It's definitely different. And then she would bounce around from a bunch of homes with some friends, and then of course get into fights with them, and then she leaves, and she was pretty much all over the place. Um, it did affect my schooling before everything really went spiraling out of control. I was always at least a 2.8 GPA. So not the greatest, but also not below average. And it went to a point where there were times I would get a little higher, sometimes we get a little lower. And in middle school, I had failed 6th grade. And I went to summer school, but that was another thing I had to lie to my dad about, was I had to lie to him saying that I failed 6th grade. I don't know why, but I was told I had to. And then I guess I just wasn't that good of a liar at that time, and eventually he found out, he told the truth, and then he's like, okay, I mean, he has to do better. I had to do better, and I did. It was just a very rough time, and with everything else juggling in the background, that someone at the age of like 12, like 10, 11, 12, 13, should not be going through. And it did affect my schooling. In fact, if I didn't transfer schools, because eventually I moved out um, because of some stuff that my mom did, I left and I was able to barely pass 7th grade. And then after that, I went back to trying to focus on school because it was a distraction. It was a distraction from everything that went down. And then, um, it was hard to make friends. It was hard to do all these activities because it was very, very difficult to communicate. Because I was a quiet kid, and the reason why I was quiet was because if I said anything, I felt like there was going to be some type of repercussion because it felt like it. Then, of course, when it got real bad, when I went to high school. Now, this is when I moved from Newark, Delaware. So I started school in Middletown, Delaware, and I did 6.5 years. I'll say 6.75 years in one town in Middletown. So it was Appoquinimink School District, I think it was. And then I went to Newark, which I don't remember the school district offhand, but it wasn't really a nice area. I did that for a year and a half. And then high school, we were in Pennsylvania. 3 years in Oxford, 1 year at Sun Valley. And of course, Sun Valley was my senior year. So, alright. This was the hardest one out of all of them. The first, 13 years, I kind of skimmed through very fast. Because when I was thinking of what I was going to say earlier, I had, it felt like I was making 30 minutes worth of stuff, and then we hit this part, which was, another 25. I didn't, count offhand. It just felt like it. But, now was the darkest part. And this is where we're really gonna focus on everything that kind of went the way it did. And I know I'm probably saying it in an odd way, but just bear with me. Or you can be distracted. Not distracted by that. Distracted by the cat in the background. So I moved into Oxford, Pennsylvania during the summertime of 2012? 2012, I think. Yeah, 2012. So I graduated in 16. Anyway, during that time, my mom again was getting in the fights with everybody. But uh then became a new thing. Alcohol. Now, before we go any further, I just want to say this. When everything happened the way it did, I was on the alcohol should be illegal train, I guess. But after realizing that not everyone is like this, and it got to a point too where I even said, like, if you drank alcohol, you're a terrible person. Um, if you drink alcohol, that means you cherish that more than doing things like going outside or seeing family and friends or your kids. Because let me tell you, it was very, very bad. Um, the amount of nights where she would drink profusely, like, and it was so much. It was always wine. Because if you're someone who does drink, you know that it's kind of hard to get drunk off beer. It's still possible, but it's not easy. Wine, it's a lot harder, especially if she's the only one drinking those big bottles, like the ones that you see in like 2 packs at the store. Um, it was tough. It was very, very tough, and it was very difficult. And I flopped down pretty fast. I got angry a lot easier and a lot faster. I then had a lot of mental breakdowns. I had numerous days where I was just upstairs crying and just hoping that this was just a bad dream. But that dream lasted for 3 years, and it felt like every day it was getting worse. Either it was getting worse because I couldn't do certain events because I had to be home by a certain time, again, just so that the cops don't get called. I was also um, physically beaten up. I can't tell you how many times I've been to school and I've had bruises on my body. Um, I had also tried to help out by dumping the alcohol in the drain without her noticing. And Willow, hold on. Sorry, guys. Come here. Come here. This is unedited, so he's fine in here. It's just that he likes to open the door as well. I'm trying to not have that happen. So, but the big thing was, um, what was I? Oh yeah, the draining. I put the alcohol in the down the drain without her knowing, and I almost got sent to the hospital because of almost a cracked rib. Now, luckily, I mean, it still hurt. It still hurt a little bit. I do remember that, but I did. It wasn't like it cracked. It was like it got pushed back. Um, Because even if you crack a rib, like that hurts. That shit hurts. And there's no real way to get through it. You just have to deal with it. But luckily, um, I only felt any kind of effects for like a couple days. Whereas if you broke a rib, that's could be like a couple months, and it sucks. Um, Willow, come here, come here. You're fine. But with everything that had transpired, I was in that same situation where I was unable to go do anything. I wasn't able to say anything because if I did, I would have been threatened with being moved over here and going to be a terrible life, and I'm going to end up homeless or dead or something like that. And I didn't want to do that, so I kept my mouth shut. The schools never got involved because I never said anything. And if I came in with a bruise, I was told to make something up, like, oh, I got hit with a baseball, or I wasn't paying attention and I got hit by a piece of lumber, things like that. Um, so I had to cover all that up just so I wouldn't get called, like I wouldn't be sent over here, because again, that fear just kept coming back. What didn't help, two things didn't really help in that situation. The first one was when I started working, and when I started working, I had to give my paycheck to her. I said it was for the bills. She said that it was going to be for the bills, but those were for bills at the wine store. So my money was used for liquor. And then I also found out too that part of this was also due to medications. She was mixing the alcohol with her medicine. Um, the only medicines I knew, or the only medications I knew she had, was for a little bit of like a pain prescription, because before everything went the way it did, she did get surgery, and she kept popping pain pills. It wasn't just like one or two in the morning and that's it. She would pop them out through the night. And the only other medicine I knew she had was for an STD. I'm saying it right now, I'm clean. I was tested, but I was clean, so I didn't catch what she caught. Um, and it's just, again, she just popped those, because you know how they have those containers where it shows like the first two letters of each day. So you take like this on Monday, take this on Tuesday, take this on Wednesday. She would take a couple days worth in the spread of a day. And it was very unsafe. And I hate the fact that I thought this way, but it's how I was. Like I was completely numb. I wasn't like I was nervous, yes, for some repercussions, but even though I didn't do any of this stuff, but still, I was still a little concerned, but not enough to where I had to drop everything and make sure everything was fine. Because it got to where I just didn't care anymore. And it was brutal. It was rough. It was something I never thought I would ever have to. I never thought I would have to deal with at any age at that point, because I was in high school, and I understand like high school could be more dramatic depending on what the situation is, but there's also a big difference with like gossip, like a girl or someone said this about you and you didn't like that, versus seeing if your mother is going to be alive when you go home. And there were times where I thought that was it. There were times where I thought that was it. And it was very dark. It was a very dark time. Now, do I still visit the town of Oxford, knowing that everything that happened the way it did? Yes, I still go there periodically. Not all the time. Maybe like once every couple months, I'll stop by and I'll see what's going on. It's I just know that it's there, but I know it's not the town's fault. It just happens to be in that town where everything took place. Um, the other thing that really got in the way, because I know I kind of rambled about other stuff that was happening, but the other situation that came involved was when I started dating. Now, in high school, it was my junior year. I was dating this one girl, and of course, it's a high school crush, and we were trying our hardest to keep it as is. It was just very hard when my mom just kept throwing negative comments at her and her mother just because there was like one small thing that she didn't like about them. And all I said was, even today, I'm like, why did it have to go the way it did? Because it was stupid. I think it was over a handshake. You're gonna lose faith in somebody over a damn handshake. It's it was bizarre. Um, Obviously, I'm no longer with that girl, but still, it was a big part of the bigger picture. And then the second to last day that I was there, um, my grandfather, the one that had passed away, he had reached out to my dad, letting him know, hey, here's what's happening. No one wants to tell you. Um, you might want to start coming by and grabbing my stuff. And he did. He did. And in which my mom had turned around when his car showed up, because he drove a Tahoe at the time. And she's screaming at him saying, you won, you won, you won, while throwing all my stuff, not all of it, but most of my stuff, in the car. And he leaves, and I don't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect. I don't know what's coming up. And it just all around was very, very crazy. Like, I didn't think it was really happening. And then the final day, we get up, and my grandfather, he came early, and he had my girlfriend in the car, and he said to me, we're going to go get lunch. We were getting lunch, and he wanted to explain to me and her, because we were together at the time, what's going to happen, what's more likely going to happen, what's more likely going to be some changes. And of course, there's going to be changes because we used to live in the same town. Now we're an hour away. And it was definitely an interesting time eating at this place, which was the little Miss Oxford diner. I love that diner, but of course, the first time I go there, it was during the final day of all this. So I thought that was odd, but also kind of funny. So about half hour later, we head back, and I told my grandfather I'm gonna go inside, I'm gonna say goodbye, and I'm also gonna take my debit card. So I go inside, and it was just brutal. So I come upstairs, I talk to my mom for a little bit, and I'm grabbing some last second stuff. Now my card was on the table. I went to go grab it, and she smacked my hand. She was going on saying that this is all the money she has left, and if I'm going to take it, I'm being selfish, blah, blah, blah. And I was trying to get my card back. Her final words saying to me in person was, go fuck yourself. See you in the next life. And that destroyed me. Even with everything that was going on, that destroyed me because I am now faced with reality that this is it. I don't know when I'm ever going to see her again. And that's how she wants to send it off, by getting frustrated at me for going to a diner. So then we drove. My grandfather drove me, and my girlfriend at the time was still in the car. We drove to, ironically, this house. And that was the start. Now, all of that happened that final day was 10 years ago, back in late June, early July, whoever you're talking to about this. I always say in between because some people say late June, some people say early July. It's one of the two. However, that doesn't mean the story completely ended. Now, this was stuff that I haven't really mentioned to anybody because it never. How's the best way to say it? I didn't think too much about it until the final thing happened. So, into my senior year, I would say we're gonna. It was close to turning 18. I was close to turning 18 when this happened. My dad had came up to me and he was telling me that on my phone, part of the phone plan that they were on, they blocked her number from my phone. And the reason they did that was because they wanted me to focus on school. They didn't want me to be distracted like how I was back then. And part of me at the time was very frustrated. I'm like, why would you do that? Because I can do this. I'm fine. I was trying to be more tough than I really was. And finally, like even nowadays, I was like, that was the right idea because you see how things are by putting your foot back in the water. So I reached out and we were talking for like 40 minutes. We did it every day for like a good couple months. Not a good couple months. I would say like 2 months. And then I was about to graduate. So I was given the option to see if I wanted to get her a ticket to the graduation. And I was back and forth on it. I'm being honest. I was back and forth on it because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if there was going to be any fighting. I didn't know if there was going to be any instigating because one of the things that she kept saying was that she was waiting for me to make my decisions and move out. I didn't know where she was. Times I heard Westchester, other times I heard the state of Georgia. But I didn't know exactly where she was. And my dad knew. He just didn't want to say anything. And for like a good 90% of it, I understand because you don't know what my mind was going through. Because at the time as well, I was taking therapy because of everything that went down. So we get closer, and my dad still said, hey, I need to know if you want her to come. And at the end of the day, I said, you know what? Maybe it's best that doesn't happen. So that was my decision. I said no. He was shocked, but he says, okay, if that's what you want, that's perfectly fine. Went and graduated, and then came the party. So my brother and sister, their graduation parties were different. One was held at this ballroom that wasn't too far away from the house they live at, and the other one was being held at a Coco's, which is a local pizza shop. For me, I had it at the house. My graduation was at the house, and I had to clean up. I had to clean the house. I had to clean the whole house before we get there. I said, not a problem. I can do that. So I was cleaning up for a good 3 hours. I was getting a little tired, and my dad saw that, and his wife, my stepmom, Deidre, she said, "You know what? You look tired. Go. You can like watch TV for like an hour, and then just get back to it." I go, "Oh, okay." Now, I had stopped calling my mom for about 3 weeks because during that last phone call we had, she kept instigating on me moving in. And I said I might be considering staying. And she wasn't having it. So I'm sitting on the couch and my phone starts ringing. And I recognized the landline already. By this point, I knew she was in Georgia. I picked up the phone because I know I'm like, okay, sorry, I've been busy. I've been trying to get some stuff done. And she ripped me a new asshole. She kept screaming in my ears. I was mentioning what was happening. I was mentioning the therapy sessions, and she thought I was making all that up. Out came, some stuff that she had done that I am not going to mention here because I'm not trying to make the video super long, even though we're already almost at 40 minutes. And she just kept going and going, denying everything that happened, and saying that, I'm feeding people lies, and, you better start counting your days because eventually they're going to strike and go after you, and blah, blah, blah. It got to the point that I didn't know what to say. So I hung up. Phone rang again. I didn't answer because I was outside. Now, what I'm about to say, don't take it the wrong way because there was no attempt in harming myself. One of the things that I had a little fun doing was chopping wood. So I went ahead and would always chop wood. I was always telling, be careful where you're swinging it. Be careful with your feet and all that other kind of stuff. So I was still careful. But I was so frustrated, I tried to distract myself by chopping wood. My dad saw that. He saw axe, and he saw me swinging an axe. And he thought it was something else. I explained to him what happened, and he apparently called her and went off on her as well. And that was the real last time I had ever spoken to her. Now, throughout the years, there would be some way, shape, or form she was trying to reach out to me, whether it was through Facebook Messenger or trying to send me emails to an email I don't use anymore. And there were a few other things that she tried to do. Like, a few years ago, and I remember this too because that was also during a bad time in my life personally, she had reached out trying to make me move into Georgia. And I at this point, in my head, I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. Well, she kept spamming messages. Now, if you've never used Facebook Messenger, it's like these other messaging platforms where you can see the messages, but if you start typing, then you accept. But you can still look at everything beforehand. And so I read all these messages, and it was about, and of course it was about, moving in. She kept mentioning that her boyfriend down there has a kid, so he's technically a stepbrother. I almost wanted to reply saying I have no stepbrother. The only brother I have is about 8 minutes away from me. It was definitely something that it definitely hit a bad point, and she still continued to try to get me involved. In fact, and another reason why I was really wanting to do this, 2 weeks ago, I got a call from somebody saying that she was trying to put a case on me. And I responded with, I don't know who this person is, please leave me alone. So even after 10 years, instead of just admitting that you were wrong, instead, you wanted to act like you were the victim. You used me as a weapon. You went after me emotionally, physically, mentally. I thought there was something very wrong with me. Let me put it to you this way. She was one of those people that thinks ADHD and autism aren't real. And there was a small part of my life where I thought the same thing. Where I thought that that was true, that autism and ADHD are fake. Now I know they're not. As a matter of fact, I'm diagnosed with both. But I always, for a while, I had thought that way. But again, I outgrew it. I know better. I've done research. Like I said, I'm diagnosed with it. It was just a very rough time all around. And besides, two only updates I knew recently is that she's no longer with that guy and she went to Wyoming. And quite honestly, my hands go up. Now, I heard that she was trying to reach out to other people to tell them that I reached out to her saying that I'm in trouble and I need help. I don't. Willow, would you cut it out? He's cutting in the rug and he's not supposed to. Not the rug, the carpet. Hold on a second. Let me try something. Good. I have a bottle here. I don't spray him with this. No, I have a different spray bottle for that. It's the first thing I found, and my grandmother, she would just shake it and he would stop doing what he's doing. But yeah, so she would try to reach out to others saying that I was in trouble, and I reach out to her saying I need help. And I've had people call me saying like, "Are you legit okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." But overall, that's what happened 10 years ago. Was I had left the one person I never thought I would have to try to ignore, and I went the other direction. It's definitely sad. And I will say it here that there are times where it does get a little rough. Whether it's like when her birthday hits or when certain events happen, like again, late June, early July, I'm reminded of that day where it all ended, and even when it ended, it had a rough start. But I'm glad that things nowadays. I'm basically glad that things turned out the way they did, because now I can officially put that aside. And I could have put it aside right away, but of course there are people out there that do. It does take longer. Like there's a song from Limp Bizkit that kind of still not triggers me, but still I have still an effect by it, by stuff that she used to say to me that was said in that song and in an aggressive tone like how she did. But overall, it was definitely a rough time. I don't recommend it for anybody. But on ending this on a positive note, this damn past 45-minute video, there was a lot of positive that came out through this, and the big ones, of course, are the people I've met ever since I had moved on, and had that situation go away. Um, I'm also currently reviving a friendship that kind of had a rocky start and ended a few years ago, but the guy reached out to me recently, so um, yeah, Nick, if you're out there, I'm willing to give it a go again. I know we were talking about that over the phone, but just thought I'd mention it here too. Um, that stinking crazy lad, Justin. I'm still waiting for you to come back to streaming, but nah, Justin, you've been great throughout the whole thing. You were the first person I really talked to besides my now ex-girlfriend, because it's been so long ago. Um, you were basically one of the first ones to know right away that I moved out, and you know, that day you drove to my job, I want to say like a year or so later, that still that like my grandmother that passed away, she did say when I helped you move that one time, she did turn around and say, that's the true meaning of a real friend, that you and him are willing to go the extra mile just to make sure they're okay. We've done that for both sides. I'm not going to go into details as to like what, but it's happened where one person's going through something, the other one, it's like an hour drive, but you know what? Fuck it. The people that are like more closer, one person I really have to thank, obviously, is my girlfriend Amanda. She's so sweet. It's kind of weird because technically my mom and my current girlfriend do have the same name. They're both named Amanda. However, to really prove to her, to the good one, the girlfriend, because I did say in the beginning, I'm like, listen, I have a troubled past with someone named Amanda, so if anything feels off, I do apologize in advance. But we were able to make it work, and we've been dating now for over 2 years, which I know on like paper that's not a long time, but it is my longest relationship, so I'll take it. But Amanda, love you, and I didn't forget about others. So like Tim, Brandy, you guys were great. Even though sometimes both of you, I like to slam your heads together, but that's how we all are. And if it wasn't for you guys, actually it was Brandy that did this, I wouldn't have gotten this stupid thing. Freaking duckies. I got it at Micro Center. But thank you guys for being there. Tori, my one friend Tori, she had not exactly similar things, but had some similar stuff with her mother, going through some stuff there. I'm not going to go into that because that's her personal information. I will say though, she did kick thyroid cancer's ass, so hell yeah. And of course, my family members that I've talked to since everything happened, and they understood that it wasn't my fault, and I did make amends to most of the people that I could. I know there was a few that I still haven't reached out yet, but it would be a miracle if I even reached out to them or if they even see this video. So if they do, sorry. um, but that's about it. That's all we're going to talk about. And that was 10 years. And now we're just going to close the door and move on to the next chapter. I'll still be making videos. It's not like a goodbye or anything. I just wanted to mention what happened all that time ago. But that's all I really want to talk about. You guys have a good one. And always remember, there's someone out there that you can talk to.